Hi, Matt Sanders here. Today's topic is on the courage to listen as a person is facing their mortality. It takes courage to listen, especially to such a difficult, heavy topic. But before I get into that, I want to share with you a little commercial. If you're interested, I wrote a little book called Interfaith Ministry Handbook, Prayers, Readings, and Other Resources for Pastoral Settings. As you can see, it's rather thin, but it's very practical, and it's rather small. It can fit into a jacket pocket often. So you might want to check that out. It's found online. Also, I have it's a textbook, Chaplaincy and Ministry of Presence, again by yours truly, can be found online, and you may find some use in that one. And I want to share with you a book I'm working on. It's not quite ready to be, it's not quite available yet online, but hopefully very soon within the next few months. And it's this one, Let God Love You. These are essays and prayers to nurture a childlike trust in God's great love. So as I said, this is not quite ready, but it'll be very soon, hopefully available to you. I have not put out a video here for quite a long time, and one of the reasons is I've been writing this book. So let's get to this topic, the courage to listen as a person is facing their mortality. I had a visit recently with a person that brought this topic to mind. So I had received a chaplain request from a woman who's about 80 who is facing her mortality. And she is facing the burdensome treatment of keeping her body going. She got a lot of medical problems, and one of them was dialysis. She was a new dialysis patient, and it was very difficult. So she just wanted a chaplain to visit and talk about whatever was on her mind. So she mentioned this piece in brief, that she's a dialysis patient and it's really hard. But then she got into, and by the way, I'm not breaking any HIPAA here. She got into some of her interests and her accomplishments, and she shared some of her some pictures of some of her artwork. And she's a real artist. I mean, some beautiful things that she has created. And so she was showing me a number of pictures, and so I was just celebrating that with her. And she was sharing with me some of the key most meaningful relationships in her life, and I just had the privilege to listen to some of those details. So this was a part of her process as she's facing her mortality. She's talking about her accomplishments, what she's leaving behind. She's talking about her key relationships and some of those who have gone before her, who have preceded her in death. And so a key part of today's video is reminding ourselves as chaplains of the importance of listening well. And listening is a discipline. It takes discipline to listen well. And I have a little stinger here for you. This may sting a little bit, but I want to say this one. If you do not have the discipline to be an excellent listener, then you probably don't have what it takes to be an outstanding chaplain. Ouch. It's very natural that when we're talking with someone, they share their story, we want to share our parallel story or an idea, an experience that we had. And don't share your story. To be a disciplined listener is only share your story if it serves them. If your story is just to express your interest in your life, then that's not what it is to be wearing the hat of the chaplain in that moment. Can we share our own stories, our own experiences? Yes, of course, but really only if it's serving them. It's different when we're meeting with friends. We go back and forth and share experiences. That's what it's about, to do small talk with friends. But in our role as a chaplain, no, we're serving the other. And so if we do share bits of our story, it's it's the absolute intention is to serve them in their need. And also an element that you may want to remember in being an excellent listener is just follow up on key words. Follow up on key elements if that's helpful at some point in the visit. So I'm going to get into these things as I further tell of this experience, this story. So I was meeting with this woman, I'll call her Mary, and she was saying very plainly that she's ready to die, that she is tired, that she feels like it's time to let go. And she was talking about her multiple health problems, heart problems, significant heart problems, significant lung disease, and now significant kidney problems requiring dialysis. Poor thing, her body was just wearing out. But she was still really undecided on what plan of care. She was not quite at peace with the decision to move on to hospice, for example, because she didn't want to say goodbye to some of her, dear loved ones who are wanting her to still fight and hang in there a little while longer. So she actually, it's very interesting that she asked me if I had any advice for her, or any suggestions, or had any experiences that might be of help to her. Most people don't ask me for that, but she did. And I wanted to be careful and not start throwing solutions her way, because I didn't feel like I really had any. But a story did come to mind. But before I shared it, I first wanted to help her, if she wanted to, mine her own inner resources a bit more. We all have riches inside of us. And so she had mentioned about an amazing experience that her daughter had when her daughter was a child. She actually had died and was brought back to life, and she had a near-death experience and went to heaven. And so she mentioned that somewhat briefly earlier in the conversation, so I wanted to return to that. And I said, that experience of your daughter, can I hear more about that? It seemed like that was the appropriate thing to do at this moment. It seemed like that would be helpful for her, to get in touch with that beautiful experience and the tremendous hope that was bringing her, the hope of the beauty of heaven. And also she had mentioned so remember, she had asked me if I had any experiences or advice. I didn't want to jump into giving her advice. But earlier she had mentioned that dialysis was burdensome. And I just wanted to return to that. And so since that was a key word, a key element to her sharing, I just wanted to follow up. I said, you had said that dialysis is really, it's just burdensome. It's very hard, isn't it? And she said yes, and went into further description on why that's so hard. And that's a new, very significant burden in her life right now. So I said to her at this point, I really don't have advice, but a story comes to mind, an experience of mine comes to mind. And it seemed like it was really appropriate to share my own story, because I was hoping it would be of service to her. Now, by way of a principle you may want to remember, in bioethics, there's a lot of wonderful stuff we can learn from studying bioethics. And they have a principle called Casuistry. It's a weird word, Casuistry. And this is case-based reasoning. And a casuistic approach asks, how is this case like or unlike another case? So she was asking actually this very thing. She was looking at her life, her case, and she was asking me, did I know of any or have had any experiences that were like or unlike this, that would provide some wisdom that could shine some light on her critical experiences she's facing. And I said, before I told her my story, another story came to mind. I didn't tell her this story, but this story was informing the story that I would tell her. And years earlier, I had an amazing experience. I was just doing routine visits, and I visited a woman who was about 80, about the same age as this woman who I was visiting with recently, and who was in a very similar developmental place in life as an 80-year-old. And this particular woman that I had visited years ago was surrounded by her loving family. There were, I think, about 4 daughters in her room with her, hospital room. And I asked the patient, she was very happy that a chaplain would come in. And I said, is there anything that I can try to do to be a support for you spiritually? And she says, we could have a prayer together. And I said, yes, of course. And her daughters were all in, yes, we're going to pray for Mom. And I could sense they wanted Mom to get better. They wanted to pray for her healing. But I wanted to check, what did the patient herself want to pray for. That's the most important thing, right? And so I asked her, I said, before we pray, is there anything in particular that you want to mention that's on your heart and your mind for prayer? And she said, without missing a beat, she said with such courage and just boom, out there, she said, yes, I want to pray for a holy death. Whoa, I had never heard anybody put it that way. I was like struck. It was like beautiful, but a bit shocking, And her daughters, all of her daughters gasped and like, Mother, you're going to give us a heart. Like, no, we got to pray for healing. No. She was making peace with her mortality, and she was praying for a holy death. So that's what we prayed for, a holy death. So I was reflecting in the back of my mind on that experience, but I didn't tell it when I was meeting with this other woman, but I told her the following story. Now, remember I said earlier that, I hadn't been putting out a lot of videos because I hadn't put out any videos. For one reason, I've been writing this book. The other reason is earlier this year I had a heart attack. So I was actually a patient in the very hospital that I work in, and after my heart attack and treatment and so forth, I was in the hospital room. Okay, so I told this story to this patient who I was meeting with, who had asked for if I had any advice or stories or experiences. So I said, yeah, so I had a heart attack earlier this year. And when I was in the hospital room late at night, and I didn't need any support from any of the staff of the nursing team or anything, I was just laying in my hospital bed, lights are out, TV's out, and it's just quiet. I said I was wanting to turn my experience in my hospitalization into a kind of retreat. And my retreat was just to focus on that God loves me. And part of my prayer amidst all this was, God, if it's my time to die, please help me prepare for a holy death. Give me a holy death. But I really don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. I've got too much to do still. There's too much that my heart is desiring to do on this planet. And I really don't want to die yet. But if it's my time, give me a holy death. But I'm not ready. And so I shared that little story with her. And I said to this woman, the reason I wanted to share with you that story is in contrast to what I'm hearing you say. You're saying that you're tired, your body's wearing out, the dialysis treatment is very burdensome, and and I want to tie into the words she had used earlier. You're saying that you don't have, this isn't quality of life, and you don't want quantity of life if you don't have quality of life. And I'm hearing you say you're ready to face death and just to go home. And she goes, yeah. And so that was it. I didn't have any advice, but I just wanted to share that with her, my story, in contrast with hers. And I made the point. I said, me in my life, I'm 58. I'm not ready to die yet. You in your life, at this season of your life task is to really become deeply at peace with mortality and to prepare for your death. And she had such peace, and she's just breathed into it, like, really, I'm ready. And at about that time, we concluded the visit. It seemed appropriate. Also, actually, the nurse walked into a room. It was perfect timing, really. And so we concluded it there. So I just want to share with you that little story and to encourage you to have courage as you listen to others, particularly if you're listening to someone as they're facing their mortality, and don't run away from the difficult topic, and don't rush in too quick to try to solve it and to give them solutions and your story, but be really patient and disciplined in your listening, and I know you'll do good work. So we'll leave it at that. God bless. Peace.